Hey, good morning, Nighthawks. So one of your groups decided to complete their work, and it's super impressed, to be honest, because they ended up only being three. And they agreed to let me grade this and put it in an announcement for you to watch. Um, and so I'm going to share my screen, and that way you'll know what to do and what not to do. Okay, so you should be able to see the screen, and as you see, Ashley Madison and Taylor have said, yes, you can. I'm going to move that. Can take a look at this. And so let's start. I like the slide. It's okay. I would rather see a more professional slide. This is still somewhat high schoolish looking almost, with the curved lines and all this. We have two different fonts in the slide. Let's see.
May we present to you Administrative Information System?
Okay, so they did a presentation. It lasted roughly 23 seconds. That's not bad. Um, I like that. Let's look at the content page. Once again, it's kind of a high schoolish looking slide, early college, and this should be a more professional slide. I offered the UNG PowerPoints to everyone, and no one took me up on that. And they are laid out perfectly the way you want them. We also talked about when we look at these slides having too much on them. And I've talked about that several times. And how many, and these are different fonts than the first slide, but how many um, items do we have? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11 bullet points plus the title with a little cute squiggly line. We just don't need that. We don't need that at all. Um, Way too many. I would have broken this up at least into two slides. You don't necessarily need, some of this could probably fall under things like artificial intelligence. You probably could have just put artificial intelligence and then put combined role and how it's related under that. And so that would eliminate it, two bullet points right there. And so just things like that. We want to keep our presentation simple, and we want to make sure the audience focus is on the presenter, right? You're the subject matter expert, and there are five people that you want to do your presentation for. One, someone visually impaired. Two, someone audibly impaired, hearing impaired. Three, someone sitting in the very back of the room. I was just at a conference and it was 50 rows deep. And in one of the presentations, I had to sit in the back of the room and I could not read what was on the slide. I'm not sure the people on the front row could read what was on the slide. Number four, someone who walks into your room and they know nothing about your presentation. They walk in and they're like, oh my gosh, what is AI? Where have I been? Right? And number five, another subject matter expert walks in your room and wants to hear the latest on what you're presenting. Those are the five people. Anytime you do a presentation, whether it's in graduate school, it's in the workplace, or it's for your undergrad, those are the people that you're doing your presentations for. So when we look at this one, um, I like the slide. Once again, the cute little border, that's fine. Um, Definitions, I would have ditched the squiggly line. Um, there is no audible on this, so I'll have to talk to him about that. Um, and then having the bullet point, which you see as a different bullet point than what we saw on the slide before, with administrative information systems, and then you can give the definition. You don't need to put it up here. You could even put like a photo or something showing what that might look like, but you don't have to fill your screen for it to be professional or inform or full of information. You don't have to, right? Sometimes less is more. Down here, artificial intelligence or AI is probably what I would have done, and then I would have given the definition and then included that in my notes. Let's see. Next slide. Uh, Once again, we have a different font size. So everything should look uniform. Every slide should look the same. Every font should look the same. Every bullet point. In this section here, when you're giving information, these fonts should be the same as the fonts on the slide before. Because what happens if three of you are going to do a presentation and two of you get a flat tire and one person has to do the presentation by themselves, they should be able to do that. And the people in the room have no idea if Ashley did the entire thing or she had two or 10 people helping her do this presentation, right? So those are the things that we want to look at when we see a slide. One, two, three, four, five. Um, that's kind of borderline on the font on the number of items. You know, really four is kind of where you want to cut that off at. The picture's a little blurry. Um, you know, is that professional? No, no, it's not. The next slide. That's a lot of information, and you won't be able to read that from the back of the room. You won't. So we have the definition here in regular font, and then we have this in a bold font. So let's see, this is at 15.2, 15.2, that's a 32, that's a 15.2 bold. We have a misspell. Um, you know, here we come back to uniformity. If you bold your title, do not bold your bullet points, okay? And you may not have known that. This is a lot of information for the slide. Great photo, great photo. Because this photo tells you, without knowing what the subject is, that you're discussing AI in healthcare. You have a healthcare worker. She's on a touch screen, which is kind of CIS-ish, which is cool. Um, but we got to make sure that we don't have misspells, right? Then we come to this slide. So let's see, Railway 23.8, Railway 40. This shaded border, just like the one in content, and if you're visually impaired, that really is hard to pick up fonts off those shaded parts of your fonts. Um, the little finger, we don't need it, right? Don't need it. Um, Once again, we have a different size font. Some of our bullet points are bold, some aren't. You know, on previous slides, there's just no uniformity. I like the slide for the most part, a little too wordy. Remember, we're going for professionalism, and we've got to talk to this student about the audio because without the audio, they can't get a grade, right? If you don't put in audio, you're getting a zero. I'm telling you right now. Yeah, maybe a 20 for doing the slides. Um, so here we go. Let's see. Railway 23.8. So how you get a 23.8 is they put the information in the box and then it they altered the box. And so it altered the size of the font instead of keeping it uniform. This is not eye-catching, the color of this shade. Let's see. What does designer say? Designer is a great tool. Sorry, no design ideas for this. So we're using a template. Okay. Let's see how long this individual spoke for on the purpose of
I'm
AI.
going to talk about
Roughly a minute there. This is a good, this is a better, this is a better slide. I don't like the finger. Uh, uh, so what happens when you do things like the fingers? People immediately lose focus on the presenter and the information on the slide, and they look at, oh, that's what I'm supposed to take away from this. That's what I'm supposed to look at. And you got to keep that in mind. Not everyone knows what you're
next.
talking
I'll
about.
explain the
So that one is a minute. So right now, this individual's in for 2 minutes.
when AIS.
So they're spending about 45 seconds to a minute. That's kind of the sweet spot. You want 45 seconds to a minute 15. I don't need to tell you about the slide. You should know on the slide, look, different bullet points, a different size railway, another. I don't like using railway. I'd rather use Calibri or the one that starts with an A. Oh my gosh. It tells you how old. Ariel, thank you. That tells you how old I've gotten. This one, man, this is way too wordy. And if I'm in the back of the room, how do I know what chapter one, chapter two, like, what is that? Is that your book? Is that a textbook you used? Is that a book you found and you just put all the information in there? Uh, if we're going to use the abbreviation for something, we need to put the name of that item and then the abbreviation. Let's see how long did this person speak for on this slide. Minute 10, that's a good time. Way too much information. This should have been two slides. Whoa. So yeah, this slide,
Last AIS was made.
34 seconds is too short, especially for the amount of information. So what that tells me, if you were 30 to 34 seconds into a slide and you've got this much information, that probably means you're reading the slide. And why do I need you if you're just going to read the slide? I don't need you, right? And this should have been two slides. And the reason I say that is when you have fonts sitting right on top of each other, they're not double spaced and they're sitting right on top of each other, just like the prior slide, really. It's going to be really hard to read from the back of the room, regardless of how large these are. This really uh, almost pastel black or light shaded black, that's going to be hard for someone visually impaired in the back of the room. Um, excuse me. PowerPoint has a sensitivity and an accessibility grader for you. Take advantage of those tools. Also, take advantage of AI. Have AI look at your PowerPoints and it'll tell you, like, hey, this is a good slide, this isn't. Excuse me. Okay, so this might be the most wordiest um, slide ever, and no one is going to read this. No one needs to know that this is Ashley's slide. So you don't need your name on the slide. It's a totally different design from the rest of the slides. I don't see audio on it anywhere. Um, so that's not good. But look at this. This is a paragraph. And then when you look at the notes that the individual, look, there's the AI dash, by the way. When you see the notes in the notes portion of the presentation, it's not even as long as the paragraph on the slide. So why do I need that? Why do I? And then here's the next one for Madison. Um, and so instead of putting your name and a paragraph of a life story, maybe you put a personal objective and you could put technology as such a part of daily lives. And then the presenter can go in and explain why, and then maybe put a photo and personalize it of the individual we're talking about or just a generic person. Another one, way too wordy, and no audio. So once again, um, and then the references are not in APA format. Plus, the thank you, this should be a totally different slide all by itself. You should have thank you questions and answers. And so let's go back up to the very first slide. You have this slide here. Your next slide, maybe, well, I'll tell you what, you can put your content in there, but before you get into your presentations, you need a slide that says Q&A and where you may have three questions and a question. And if you have five presenters, then you want five questions. If you have three presenters, you have three questions. Each presenter put a question in there. And that question um, is what that presenter wants more than anything else for the audience to learn. And then when we come to the end, where we're here at the thank you, question and answer, and then the question with a brief answer. Okay. And you don't need an audio on the thank you question and answer, but you need to make sure you're letting the audience know, okay, this is the end. Thank you for joining us. And then a separate slide all together for references in APA format. And look at this, Times Roman 9, a completely different font, a completely different shade, and a completely different size. If I were grading this without the audio, the individual who did the audio, I probably would have given them a 70. And the two individuals who did not do the audio, I would have given them a 20 or a 25. Okay. So we're going to stop share. So I want to make that kind of brief and run through that really quick. I got to reach out to this group. They owe me some audio, don't they? But thank you, group, for letting me grade that and really dice and slice your presentation up. Um, So with that being said, if you have questions, I've said this all semester, you can send me your work no matter what the assignment is, and I'll look at it and I'll kick it back to you and tell you if it's on the right track or if you need extra work on it. Um, and I think I've had two people out of four classes. So let me think. That's roughly 115 students. Let's say the average class has they have more than 10, but just for easy math purposes. So over 1,000 assignments, think about this, 1,000 assignments. I've gotten two back to look at, right? So if you have tools to use those tools. Your professors are your tools. Use them. That's part of your education. This is a green light for AI. Make sure you're using it, take advantage of it. And with that being said, I'm going to sign off. This video's gone on long enough. Thank you, everyone. Bye.